Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour. It's NFL Combine Week. We'll hear from Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah on Tuesday afternoon. But before all of that, the real thing that kind of happens on the Combine Week is not just the draft prospects on the field. It's all the pre-tampering, you could almost call it, right, Doogie, in Indianapolis. So what a better spot to kind of record an episode and talk about the impending free agents that the Vikings have in a quick little who's in, who's out kind of scenario. So thank you for joining us today, and let's just dive into it.
Let's do it, boys. Happy Monday to both of you. Appreciate you welcoming me back.
Absolutely.
Of course, anytime.
Always. You have an open spot whenever you want, even though I'm sure you're all the way in on Wolves and Twins and NFL and you name it.
All over the place. I was at Concordia University this morning in St. Paul. Men's and women's basketball teams winning conference championships over the weekend, right? So that has to be on my radar.
Yes.
I was over at Wild's practice. So, yeah, all over the place. But was just texting, doing some NFL texting, catching up on my guy Jalen Travis, De La Salle High School, and Cody Lindenberg, Anoka High School. He may wait until Gophers Pro Day on March 19th to do any on-the-field work. So I need to double check on that. So that's more me speculating in this space, but somebody told me to check on that. Plus, I mean, linebackers like Cody are already there. I mean, the formal interviews are beginning today. Defensive linemen, linebackers, I believe maybe also place kickers, the 5 or 6 place kickers. I thought the Gophers kicker should have gotten an invite, but nonetheless, I mean, things are definitely ramping up. But Matt, you're right. I mean, it's all the other stuff happening. It's all the agents descending upon Indianapolis today into tomorrow. All the behind-the-scenes conversations that are either taking place in a hotel suite or maybe perhaps at one of the great restaurants in the downtown Indianapolis area. Yes, the tampering that is about to take place in Indianapolis will be off the charts.
Yes, and it'll be great. Let's start with the biggest name that the Vikings have for impending free agency. It's Sam Darnold. The conversation has shifted quite a bit since that playoff loss versus the Rams a while back. So anything new you're hearing on Sam Darnold? Is it kind of book closed? Good luck. Test the market. Thank you for your service here in Minnesota.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have always thought it was thank you for your service here in Minnesota. The question to me has always been, is there a trade to be worked out? Slap the franchise tag, immediately trade him. You don't have to worry about him putting pen to paper and you're locked into $40-something million in 2025. So those are things that'll be discussed this week in Indianapolis. Now, I'm fascinated by some of the national steam even today, suggesting maybe Matthew Stafford to the Raiders. Okay, so then what for Sam Darnold? Are we looking at the potential of the Steelers? Because where does Aaron Rodgers land if Stafford ends up in Vegas? Does Aaron Rodgers then land with the Rams? Would the Rams really go Aaron Rodgers over Sam Darnold? I get it. The money is significantly different, the years, everything. But would the Rams really do that? I think Sam Darnold to the Rams makes all sorts of sense, right? But then you start thinking, okay, if those dominoes potentially fall, and still a lot needs to happen for them to actually fall, but if that actually takes place, where does Darnold land? Is it Pittsburgh or is it somewhere else? But I've never seen Sam Darnold back with the Vikings, Matt. So, yeah, I mean, it's somewhere else. It's just a matter of what that looks like. Do they let him just hit the market outright, which is entirely possible, or is there the potential of a trade to be worked out?
Yeah. So, Doogie, I'm just thinking through, as you said today, people are talking, okay, Stafford to the Raiders, Rodgers to the Rams, maybe Kirk to the Browns. Maybe the Titans decide that, hey, maybe we want Cam Ward. He impresses this week in interviews and things like that. Maybe the Steelers sign, Justin Fields. I mean, is there a world in which a market doesn't materialize for Sam Darnold and he's available to come back to the Vikings for, a lot less than what we expected? I think that's been some of the speculation, but I don't foresee that happening. But do you think that the Vikings are just, J.J. McCarthy and Daniel Jones, or do you see a world in which a market doesn't materialize for Sam and he could be back?
That would be crazy, huh, Nick? Like if a market didn't materialize for
yeah,
me,
I know.
the clear cut. best available quarterback. Now, Matthew Stafford might blur some of that line of thinking, but when thinking about Darnold with Rodgers, with Wilson, with Fields, with Garoppolo, with some of these other guys, Daniel Jones, like to me, it's Darnold. Then it's a drop-off. Maybe not a significant drop-off to Wilson, but it's a drop-off. Against Stafford, clouds some of that, but I don't know. I have a hard time believing that a market isn't going to materialize for, to me, the clear-cut best available quarterback. Now, that being said, there are huge fans. Like, nothing has changed because of the last 2 games. There are enormous fans of Sam Darnold. Emphasis on fans. Let's not forget about Josh McCown. Like, Sam Darnold is Josh McCown's guy. Josh still has a voice here with the Vikings. So I don't know. Like, could you figure out the price point? And the 25 cap number is significantly low, and the 26 cap number isn't ridiculous. Like, I don't know how you would make that work. Like, I look at the 26 cap sheet with the Jefferson contract, some of the other contracts. I don't know how you would make a Darnold deal work in 26. Like, how far up can you push money? And I get it, the cap is going up. And there is a scenario where you could concoct a contract where the 25 cap number is pretty darn low. Like, that's not out of the realm of possibilities, but I don't know how you soften the blow in 26. That's why it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I'm fully cognizant of like the love, the support for Sam Darnold in Egan. But there's also a realistic way of looking at things and saying, okay, we need to fill this need, that need, this need, that need. How do you fill all those needs if you're committing a bunch of money to Sam Darnold?
Well, speaking of needs, we know we have a lot on the defensive side with Cam Bynum and Byron Murphy heading towards free agency as well. We had Ben Albright on from Denver last week, and he gave a pretty spicy prediction, or more so an informed take is what he said, that he maybe saw Byron Murphy and Cam Bynum both returning to Minnesota as we head into NFL Combine Week. Is that kind of what you're hearing? Are those both an option to come back?
Well, if it does happen, Bynum needs to take a pretty team-friendly deal, which I suppose is possible. But if you're Cam Bynum, isn't this really your one opportunity to cash out?
Yep.
Like, I don't think it's happening down the road. This is it for Cam Bynum. Now, hey, maybe he'll throw that in my face 3 years from now. He's still playing at a really high level, that there's another contract in his future. But to me, this is it. But like his influence in the community, how much love there is for Cam, if he's willing to take a pretty team-friendly deal, sure, the Vikings would love to have him back. On Byron Murphy Jr., like, I'm not sure there's a higher priority. Doesn't mean it's a slam dunk it's going to get done. I mean, not at all, right? Whether it's the Raiders or someone else, may blow the Vikings out of the water. But I sense, like, internally, the highest priority is to retain Byron Murphy Jr. That more than anything else, they want Byron Murphy Jr. back in purple. And so I'd like to think something can get done because they know the price, right? I mean, it's going to be a big, big number, okay? So I'd like to think they can find a way to get that deal done. I'm just saying that if Cam also gets done, and hey, we know there were talks last offseason with both Murphy and Bynum on extensions. There were multiple talks on Bynum. They did not get, I don't sense, close to the finish line on Bynum leading into week 1, but there was enough dialogue. We know that there is mutual interest. I just need to know what exactly is that price point that the Vikings won't exceed. Because I guarantee, maybe you bend a little bit on Murphy. I don't think the Vikings are bending much on Bynum. If he's willing to come back for that number, they throw his agent. And hey, there will be those discussions. Those things will ramp up, those talks, this week in Indianapolis, because I know that there's mutual interest, okay? But whatever that number is, if Cam says no, if his representation says no, I don't know how much wiggle room there's going to be from the Viking side. So when Ben was in this space suggesting that both could be back, sure, I'm not dismissing that at all, but I'm just saying, like, Cam would have to swing and miss. His representation would have to swing and miss on some other potential opportunities where he could cash out a lot more than he could cash out here.
Yeah, it took us both by surprise a little bit, didn't he? And he dropped maybe like the nugget that that Bynum's deal would be extremely front loaded, and Murphy's would be a lot of void years.
Yeah.
To kind of make it work. But
that's a Brzezinski staple, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's,
right. Yeah.
That's the Vikings. Yeah, in a nutshell, right? So yes, I mean, you can guarantee there's going to be void years. Yes.
You're going to have to do something. So, the other kind of impending free agent that we haven't really talked about a lot, and I don't know if it's really worthy, but Cam Robinson is an impending free agent. The Vikings moved a draft pick last year to secure his service for the remainder of the season. Do you have any insight as to whether or not the Vikings are interested in bringing him back? I mean, he plays tackle. He's probably going to command a little bit more money than they're willing to spend. But yeah, I'll let you fill us in on that.
I would guess it'd be a combined question of that is, do we know how Darrisaw is doing with his recovery? Because I think that those two would play hand in hand with each other.
Yes, well, Darrisaw, incredible athlete, young enough where I've not heard of any sort of setback or anything crazy. I can't speak, Nick, like right to the second where he's at in terms of his recovery. But even going back to the season, it seemed like, post the surgery in November that it was a normal surgery. It should be a normal recovery. So for a guy like that, we're talking 9, 10-ish months, maybe 11, shouldn't be a full 12 months, full year. And so the injury happened, October 24th? So is he back by September?
It'll be close.
5th, September 6th? It's close. If he's not, you might have an internal solution potentially with a Rouse or whoever that may be if you re-sign Quessenberry, whatever it might be if needed for a week or if it's multiple weeks, whatever it might be. But we know that Darrisaw is the left tackle for the foreseeable future. Okay, so how does Cam Robinson fit into the equation? Could he shift to guard? I just don't know how he doesn't get tackle money.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, they like him. They were very happy, especially the way he played immediately after he came in, the professional that he is. A lot to like, but I just don't know how you get to the number that others potentially will get to retain him. I don't see it. Call me nuts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see him back. I don't.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, we have our bookend tackles, and I just don't think, throwing a bunch of money at another guy to sit behind those as just an insurance policy, unless you, to your point, you feel comfortable moving him inside to guard. Makes sense. And he is 30. So it's not like he's 26, coming off of a fresh new deal. So
I'm not sure though that they're anti-Matt, like
really
that idea of guard. Like, I don't think that's the craziest thing.
Did he play guard at all in college?
But he's getting tackle money, was he? I don't know. You would know better than I. I'm just saying that idea isn't nuts. It's not, right? But like, he's not taking guard money, right? He's a tackle. How do you not take tackle money? You're going to get tackle money. Why would you accept guard money? It just doesn't work like that. And so, I firmly believe he'll get a nice tackle contract and be some team's starting left tackle.
Before we move to some other free agents, this just popped into my head, but do you ever get the sense that the Vikings, like, I know they moved Ezra Cleveland, and, the guard versus tackle debate can be had another time with Ezra Cleveland, but I mean, he was a guard and he was decent for the Vikings during their tenure here. Do you ever think that they regret kind of moving on from him and moving him to Jacksonville? Now knowing they have 2 interior offensive lineman positions open? You don't have to answer. You can look into it, but it's interesting to me.
Yeah, I don't know if there's deep regret. He was a Spielman pick, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember his representation, just the initial idea to move him inside was looked at.
He was drafted as a tackle.
Super favorably. Yeah, I mean, he was a second-round pick, right?
Yeah.
As a tackle. Not as a guard, but he accepted it. But no, I don't sense that there's any, oh, no, we really bleeped up trading him to Jacksonville. What the heck were we doing? We absolutely blew that one. I don't get that sense.
Well, speaking of the tackle to guard transition, I'm just recalling. I just wanted your confirmation is that they're expecting Walter Rouse to potentially jump in and move to guard this offseason too, or at least have that potential flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's Rouse, I mean, they like the young guy they took out of Wake Forest, Juergens, right? I mean, they like some of these young offensive linemen that have that interior skill set, right? On Rouse, I still wonder if he's more a tackle than a guard. I'm not saying they're not going to explore that possibility. I know it's even been floated. I believe you're right, Nick. It's been floated out there. I don't think I floated it out there, but that the idea has been at least discussed. I don't know if it's been discussed internally, but some media types I think have volunteered the idea. I don't think it's the craziest thing. Incredibly smart guy. So in terms of him picking that up, I wouldn't worry about that. But yeah, I don't know if Walter like if you're thinking about the possibility of Walter being a starting guard in September, I don't know if I'm willing to go there. And so if you're thinking about we need some Darisaw insurance, it's probably more so a veteran type, whoever your veteran swing guy is. I would think that makes more sense. I mean, heck, look at Brandel, right? I mean, he's got that tackle guard sort of flexibility, right? I mean, he was a tackle at Oregon State, correct me if I'm wrong. Right?
Yeah,
he was. Yeah, he was left tackle.
Yeah, so I mean,
you're right.
Yeah, I mean they think along those lines. So, there's evidence to suggest they do. But I'm just saying I don't know if I would say okay, Walter is a guy you can look at, okay, great training camp, great preseason, and week one when they're playing whomever, okay, that's the guy. I'm not there yet. And I don't know if I'll ever be there, frankly.
That's fair. Aaron Jones, what's the latest on him? Do you think he'll be back? He could command a little bit of money. He's getting up there in age, though, too, in a deep running back class, one that Thor Nystrom has pounded the table for a while to take 2 in because it's just that deep.
Yeah, I mean, just with their lack of picks, I don't know if it's going to be 2, if Thor's going to get his wish, but clearly you need to secure 1 from this stud of a draft class, right? So, I mean, that makes all sorts of sense. I mean, again, what's the number on Aaron? Do they want him back? Absolutely they want him back. But at the same number he was making last year? I don't think so. Is Denver willing to pay him that number or someone else? If they are, if money matters most, I think Aaron's gone. But if he's willing to come back and play on their terms and they want to lessen his workload, so whatever his touches was in 24, that wouldn't be his touches in 25. And so can you come to that sort of happy medium? Is Aaron willing to play ball in that regard? Or does Aaron feel like he still has another bell cow type, at least 1 year left in him? If he does, Denver or someone else makes all sorts of sense. But yeah, there's absolutely mutual interest, and when thinking about the combine and, the Vikings sitting down with Rosenhaus and the Rosenhaus folks. I mean, there's a lot of guys that can discuss with Drew, and Aaron will be one of them.
How about Cam Akers, or are they going to wait to trade for him for the 3rd year in a row later this year?
I mean, he really thought. I mean, I remember him rehabbing at TRIA Training House and being here in town in the summer. I mean, he was out on the field with Mo Ibrahim and Ade Murkey, who was from St. Croix Lutheran here in town, played at the University of Denver, NBA player, had a cup of coffee a couple years ago with the Sacramento Kings, still plays professionally. All 3 were rehabbing Achilles injuries. And so they were on the field at TCO, part of Training House, training at different points throughout the summer. I mean, Cam, there was a reason why he was doing that rehab here. He always thought he was going to be back in purple. Something fell through, something happened. I don't know all the details. Okay, ends up in Houston, but then the Vikings work out the trade, and he ends up back here. Yeah, I mean, they want him back. I like to think this time they don't have to worry about him signing elsewhere, and it turns into a trade. Cam really likes it here. I think he has found a home. I think he's a rock-solid 2/3. So if you bring back Aaron, but you end up with a Henderson from Ohio State or a Johnson from Iowa, or you name the draft running back, whatever that divvying is that you can make it work, but certainly interest in retaining Akers.
Yeah, I was gonna say that might be a sneaky. I don't know if sneaky is the right word, but Cam Akers and maybe a rookie running back instead of Aaron Jones, depending on what he gets on the open market.
Mm-hmm.
Some other guys that I'll just kind of list a few, and you can kind of give us a quick sense, because I don't know if we need to spend a whole lot of time on them, but we have like Patrick Jones, who kind of came on a little bit last year. Johnny Munt, who at one point Kevin O'Connell called the best tight end 3 in the NFL. So be interested to see if he comes back. And then Ryan Wright and Brandon Powell would be the other two that I think fans might be a little bit interested in knowing what the future holds for them as Minnesota Vikings.
All right, I'm Patrick Jones with Dallas Turner, with the money that I think Jones can command. The really shrewd agent, his agent Torrey, is really, really good. Hard to see Jones back. Like I think somebody gives him a pretty good contract. I don't think it's the Vikings. Not that they don't like him. They'd love to have him back. I don't see how that happens. I think Patrick Jones, much like Cam Bynum, this is Jones's one time to cash out to whatever extent that is for a guy like Patrick Jones, but he did enough. I think you could argue his best year of his 4, and there's enough body of work. He's entering free agency at a good time that I just don't see how he ends up back in purple. On Ryan Wright, I think they do look for a potential replacement there. I don't think it's a stone cold lock that he's back. I'll leave it at that on Wright. Brandon Powell, they'd love to have him back, but I still wonder the times I've seen him run routes and do things as a receiver, I feel like there's just a little bit more to his game. I'm not suggesting there's a lot more.
Yeah.
I'm a Brandon Powell fan. It's almost like I'm watching the Wolves and Jaden McDaniels, who we've seen take a jump up offensively the last, 5-6 weeks. I always felt like it was there. He's had it in him, right? And finally, there's been an opportunity to unleash it. I feel like not maybe quite to that extent, Powell to McDaniels, but I feel like there's a little bit more there with Powell. Is anybody willing to give him that opportunity? But he loves it here. The two sides, definite interest. So I could see him back as your primary punt returner and sort of the same role. Maybe it evolves a little bit, when talking about offensive snaps, but primary punt returner, special teams guy, definitely can see Powell back. I just wonder, I haven't done any sort of deep dive on what his market looks like right this second, will in the coming weeks, but I haven't done that yet. But Powell being back, that one, I absolutely, I can see. Who else was the guy you mentioned? So I'm leaving
Johnny Munt was the other guy.
Yeah, Johnny Munt. Yeah, I mean, KFC loves him. You laid it out, Matt. Johnny Munt, yes. That one I can see getting done as well. So Johnny Munt back, that wouldn't surprise me. Jahad Ward would be another one.
Oh, yeah.
Wonder a little bit about the market for Ward. I mean, he played well, but there's some limitations there, right? But I could absolutely see Ward back in purple.
All right, here's one for you, Doogie. If I were a betting man and I did a 3-leg parlay of Brian Osmala, Ed Ingram, and Ty Chandler not being on the week 1 roster heading into next year, how would you feel about that bet?
All right, well, what's your money line? So
well, we can't bet in
you hit on
Minnesota.
your parlay. Yeah. What is it paying? 6-1, 7-1, 8-1, 10-1, 14-1?
Let's just
what's
say
it paying? Nick? Tell me what it's paying.
10-1, he says.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something like a plus 1,400 or plus 1,800 parlay, bet it. Absolutely, roll the dice. Chandler would be the one I'd pause on, right? I mean, Asamoah, love Brian and special teams stud, but I don't know if there's ever going to be a fit in a Flores defense. And I know he was open-minded to a trade at the trade deadline and never came to fruition, but he would have been okay with that, is my sense. Okay. And so great teammate, right? DJ in the locker room, big fan of Brian Asamoah, the person. He was just at Ronald McDonald House the other day, putting smiles on some of the patients' faces over there in Minneapolis on the campus of the University of Minnesota. A-plus guy, big fan of Brian Asamoah, but you can save a little bit of money. If there's not a role on defense, if you don't view him as a second teamer, I don't know how how you bring him back. And yeah, Ed Ingram's been documented now for a few weeks. If he's not starting and he's not going to start, right, I don't know how you bring him back when you can save. You guys know the exact number, but whatever it is, 7 figures. If you can save 7 figures, you save 7 figures. You move on from Ed Ingram.
Who are your other guys, Nick?
I was just going to say Ty Chandler just because we talked about Cam Akers.
Well, sure.
Back.
Well, I mean, if you end up drafting a
Jones
running back, heck, if they even drafted one at 24, like not something I'd take off the table, right? So, if you take a running back relatively early, or maybe you move back from 24, accumulate another top 100 pick, and take that running back at pick 30-something or 40-something, whatever it is. Okay, well, if you bring back Aaron, right, depending on the Aaron Jones number. So, I don't know. Some moving parts on Ty Chandler, but I can't sit here and tell you definitively Ty is gone. Like, I can't see a scenario absolutely where Ty is back. And so that's where the 3-player parlay, like I paused just a little bit. But if you can get really good odds, Nick, run with it. Because 2 of them you can absolutely make a compelling case on. It's that third one you pause. But if you've got 18-1 odds or 20-1 odds or whatever it is, 14-1, heck, roll the dice on that.
Nice. I think one other, Matt, we talked about Shaquille Griffin. Any chance that he comes back in that cornerback needy room?
Oh, I didn't bring him up. No.
Well, yeah. And, I mean, you have Stephon Gilmore as well, right? I mean, does Gilmore feel like he has another year in him? Would the Vikings have interest in bringing him back? I wouldn't rule out one of those guys. I don't think both are back, Gilmore and Griffin, but I could see one. Again, depending on the number, but yeah, I wouldn't. And Shaq's role fluctuated. I mean, there were some games where his defensive snaps were like, what, in the teens?
Yeah,
maybe low 20s?
Sometimes. Yeah.
Like, it's not like he was playing a crap load of snaps. And so does that role make sense? What's the number? I don't know if you're paying Shaq the exact number you paid him in 24. Don't remember that number top of my head.
Was it 4 million? Or it was up 4 or 5, yeah.
Yeah, was it 4-ish? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're bringing Shaq back at quite that number, but is there a rock-solid market for Shaq Griffin? I don't know on that one. And so I wouldn't rule one of those guys out, but I can't sit here and tell you, like, I feel incredibly strong about it, right? Like, I can lay out how badly the Vikings want Murphy back.
Yeah.
Okay. If you can work out a team-friendly deal on buying him, I guess hard for me to foresee, but if it somehow worked out, yeah, okay, right? On those 2, I don't know. I think the Vikings are going to plant enough seeds. There's enough free agent cornerbacks, so there's some other names that they're interested in, external free agents. And if you swing and miss, maybe one or both of those guys are like a plan C, maybe a plan B. I don't know if either's any sort of plan A, put it that way.
And I think we've been bearing the lead on the ones that Vikings fans might have the most interest in outside of Darnold. Is any word on Harrison Smith and the potential that he could be back or retire?
I will tell you this, because I told you guys 2 weeks ago when I was in this space, I would come back on in a week or two, give you the latest. Here's what I know. If he's made a decision as of late last week, he had not relayed that decision to multiple people that you would think he would. And so I don't know what his decision is. I really don't. But if he's made it, you would think at some point he's going to verbalize that to the people that need to know it. And as of late last week, that had not happened. The longer this thing goes on, I'm with my colleague Judd Zolgad on this. The longer this thing goes on, I can see him back. Like, I've always thought there was absolutely a chance. Like, I wasn't on that boat of right after the Rams lost, the emotional interview with Ben Lieber, talking to some others in the locker room. A lot of people thought in that moment, he's done. He's retiring. He's not playing a 14th season. I was never there because I remember having a nice conversation one-on-one with him late in training camp where he told me, I feel like I've got a lot of good football left in me. So you mean to tell me after that 13th season where I thought he was fine, I really did. Maybe the splash plays weren't necessarily there, but I thought Harrison Smith was fine this past year. You guys can go at me on that if you want, but I thought he was fine.
Yeah.
For studying a letter grade, I'm not suggesting A-, but I don't think he was like D+ or C-, right? So somewhere in the middle there. I think there's enough football left in him. Like, I think he can help in so many ways on the field plus off the field.
Obviously,
in 25, I get it. You need to figure out the contract, right? And he's taking multiple pay cuts. So we know he's open-minded. to playing at a relatively low number, I can see him back. I can. Yeah, I get it. The contract needs to be worked out. It absolutely does. They will sit down with his representation in Indianapolis, right? I mean, his representation also has Daniel Jones, some others. And so there will be dialogue in Indianapolis. I'm just telling you, in this moment here on February 24th, if he's made a decision as of February 21st or 20th late last week, he had not verbalized that decision to those that need to know.
It's going to be a busy week of conversations in Indianapolis, that's for sure. Before we let you go, are there any free agent names or draft prospects, for that matter, that we haven't heard of being connected to the Vikings that you feel comfortable sharing as we get closer to free agency?
I'll give you more positions. I'll have to save
Okay.
the names for later on.
That makes sense.
They'll spend interior of the offensive line.
Okay.
I'll be surprised if they don't. Now, hey,
Okay.
I would have told you in this space last year they were going to spend interior of the defensive line, and they were willing on Wilkins, right, and just lost out in a bidding war to the Raiders, so quickly pivot, right? But my sense is they realize how important fixing the interior of the offensive line is. That comes with a cost. That's as big a want/need as there is, and so I think you end up doing that externally. Cornerback, okay, like you want Murphy back, so that's more internal. Now, if he goes to the Raiders or somewhere else, okay, you pivot and pay a DJ Reed or whomever it is a lot of money. So we're talking external, but we're talking about external help. To me, interior of the offensive line, I would look at that more than anywhere else.
Yeah, and it makes sense. If you're gonna hand the keys over to JJ McCarthy, you do not want to give him an offensive line of Dalton Reisner, Ed Ingram, and so on and so forth. So it definitely makes sense that will be priority number one from an external standpoint.
Yeah, and on Reisner, I mean, I just don't see a scenario. I mean, unless he's sitting out there again in late August or something like that, I don't see a scenario where Dalton is back.
Yeah, that makes sense too. So
pivoted to Rosenhaus.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I mean, middle of last year, maybe right before he signed with the Vikings. So this time last year, he didn't have Rosenhaus, but
that connection
that changed later on as that lengthy free agent process, kept going and going and going. Part of that process was changing representation, and Rosenhaus was able to land him here. And so that'll be another name that comes up with Drew in Indianapolis. But that's when I don't see that happening.
Just a reminder to us to look at all of Drew's client list and then see who might be signing with the Vikings based on that. But
and what's interesting, Nick, if you go back like 2 or 3 years, there wasn't much of a Rosenhaus influence here. I mean, it changed snap of the fingers, right? With Van Ginkel and Grenard and Jones and Reisner, and I'm probably leaving out a name or two, but it wasn't that way just a few years ago. It really wasn't. And when I say Rosenhaus, right, I mean, Drew's the president of his company, but he's got multiple agents that work under him, right?
Guys.
And so there's different guys handling different clients and all that. But, they're all underneath that Rosenhaus umbrella. So, whether it's Rob directly or, the combination of Kwesi, Rob, and Grigson and company, they'll have a nice conversation with Drew in Indianapolis.
Well, I appreciate your time, Doogie. We'll have to see if we can make another appearance work. I know it's like you're about to get on a roller coaster right now. The phone's going to be blowing up with all the free agency stuff in the coming weeks. I'm sure there's some kids' spring breaks in there and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
navigating it all and busy kid stuff and personal stuff and all that. So I mean, I've always said, Matt, I'd rather be busy than bored. But
that's
the next few weeks, I mean, March Madness is a real thing in my world. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Well, we'll stay in touch and we'll see if we can make something work. If not, thank you again for your 2 appearances this early or late winter, I guess we can call it.
You got it, boys. Matt, good to see you. Nick, good to see you.
Awesome. Everybody, if you're watching, please like, subscribe, follow our podcast. You can get on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back later this week. Andrew Kramer with the Star Tribune. And we'll be recapping some combine stuff. We got Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell's pressers, so I'm sure we'll be able to take something from there.
Here's another plug too. Jonathan Grenard, at least here in the Twin Cities, on Twin Cities Live, Channel 5 on Tuesday. That might be more lifestyle, family stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
there may be a
Football
chance
is
that maybe
football.
somebody here in our building may try to catch up with him on some football stuff off to the side.
I love it. I love it. Nice plug. Until next time, everybody, Skol Vikings.